Hey friends, it's Laura. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having an amazing day. I'm having a pretty relaxed day and doing some plant care, so here we are. My husband surprised me with some begonias. I am really excited about these begonias. I am going to pot them up in my Poti 5 terrarium. I planted this terrarium maybe a year and a half ago, and I love how it's doing, but I feel like it needs a few more plants. It needs some tidying up, some refreshing, and also I need to put these guys somewhere. That's what I'm gonna be doing, little plant chore video. If you are interested, grab your coffee or tea or whatever, and let's get started. First up, we have Begonia Solimutata, which kind of translates to changes color in the sun. My understanding is the more sun or light that this plant gets, the more distinct the markings are on the leaves. I really am in love with this texture. Like, it is almost like goosebumps on the plant. It feels really, really cool. It also has these beautiful pink margins around the leaves, which is really, really cool. And I wonder if those become more prominent if it gets more light as well. This is a more compact begonia. As you can see, the leaves are fairly small, almost heart-shaped leaves, I guess. Heart-shaped, or yeah, kind of heart-shaped. But yeah, this texture. My second begonia that I'm going to be working with today is Begonia Masoniana, also known as Iron Cross begonia, and also known as Begonia variegata, I believe. If they're not the same plant, they are very, very similar plants. And this plant also, as you can see, has insane texture. It is so beautiful. And this plant can get quite large. I'm going to plant it in my terrarium today, but I am under no impression that it will be able to be completely contained in there. And I found it really interesting. In this particular pot, you can see how the plant was propagated. This is obviously just a leaf that has been cut in half and planted in the soil. And then all of this new growth is the propagation. I just thought that was pretty cool. And my third begonia that I'm going to be planting today is Begonia Zumba. That is what I believe it is called. It's got these red escargot leaves with neon green splotches. Some of the leaves are more neon green. This one's my favorite leaf. Isn't that insane? These are a little bit fuzzy around the edges and absolutely stunning. Now, this plant is fairly large. I don't think I'll be able to fit the whole thing into my terrarium, but I plan to divide it up and have two plants. I think I'm gonna plant the second plant just under a humidity dome or a cloche. But this one is absolutely stunning. All right, I'm really excited to get planting, so let's get started. All right, friends, so I'm gonna set up on this table because it's nice and sunny. I'm just setting up my plant mat. You can see here, this is the terrarium that we're working with. It is doing amazing. But it just needs more plants, basically. And I've been waiting to get the right kind of plant to put in there, and begonias are definitely the right type of plant. I envisioned this video more you guys watching the plants. I'm going to not really be in the frame, so I'm gonna set that up and hopefully you enjoy the repotting. Just taking the terrarium tank off the stand so that we don't have a big accident and I don't knock it over. Let's see what's going on in there. So I definitely want to keep this Begonia maculata. It's doing really well. I also have some Begonia silver dollar in here, and those are just propagated from this leaf that I just threw in there. There's also some pink Photonia in there. Not a lot of it, but I'm gonna just let that stay in there. What I'm gonna take out is this giant quartz. I love it, but we need more room for plants today. And then I have a Hoya curtisii that I tried to plant in there, but it is rotting. So I'm just gonna remove that completely. Sometimes things we plant in terrariums don't totally take off. There is some tiny little string of turtles going on in here, and I'll just leave those in there. There's not a lot of them. The mix of soil that I have in here is a chunky mix. There's some leca, there's some soil, there's some perlite. I tried to just make it really chunky because obviously there's no drainage happening. I was considering taking out all of the soil, but looking at it right now, the roots still have a ton of room. So I'm just gonna actually leave the soil in here as it is. I'll probably add a little bit of soil on top of the new plants, but I'm not gonna take all these out and disturb these roots because this guy is doing really well. So the first plant I'm gonna start with is this Begonia Masoniana. I know this plant is going to outgrow the terrarium, but for now it's going in there. Just gonna dig it out. The roots are not that crazy. I'm gonna put this sort of near the back, or what I think of as the back of this tank, because then if it gets big, it can sort of fill in the background as it grows. Just move the silver dollar over a little bit. There we go. That texture is just incredible. It feels really interesting. The next plant is the Begonia mutata, which reminds me of Hakuna Matata. Oh, this one seems to have bigger roots. I know that these are fairly juvenile plants. The nursery that I got them from propagates their own begonias. So I know that these are fairly juvenile. That's why I'm just like digging in there and not too worried about the roots. I know that they are not root bound. Look at those leaves. So stunning. And the texture on this one as well is just so beautiful. I'm gonna be opening up the terrarium just to like pet these things. Now, as I said, my understanding is Soli mutata means transforms with the sun. And it is also sometimes called the suntan begonia because when it gets tons of sun, these markings can become even more prominent. I think they're quite prominent right now. I'm assuming this got quite a bit of sun in the nursery. But that's where the name comes from, which is really, really adorable. And because this one is fairly compact, I'm gonna put it near what I'm calling the front of the terrarium. That way we can really see it. This begonia hopefully will grow sort of behind it. As I'm looking at this right now, I'm actually thinking of maybe just chopping this maculata and replanting it in the soil because I'm redoing refresh anyway. Why not do it all at once? Same with the Fittonia, but I'll do that after. Next up is the Begonia Zumba, or what I'm calling Begonia Zumba. That, according to my research, this is Begonia Zumba. But if you know another name for it, please let me know. The nursery just had like a number on it. It didn't have a name. But this one right now is kind of blowing my mind. Those colors are insane. And then I love the sort of escargot snail shape. This one I know right away is way too big for this terrarium, but I think I can separate it into 2 clumps. And then I'll just grow the other clump in another situation. I'm hoping I can do that anyway. So begonias are so easy to propagate. You can propagate them through leaf, you can propagate them through stem cuttings, and you can just divide them like I'm doing right now. You just want to make sure you're destroying as few roots as possible, but that one actually had a pretty clean break. We're losing some stems. I could actually propagate these. Maybe I'll just stick them in a vase, put those to the side for now. And I'm gonna want the smaller of all of these. Oh, that looks like the leaf that was used to propagate it. Just sort of a half leaf in there. Now I want to make sure that all of these clumps have good roots, which they do. And I'm going to pick this more compact clump. I'm going to remove this taller leaf. We'll propagate these as well. Now, since I know this is gonna get tall, I'm gonna also tuck that in kind of behind that Begonia mutata. The The soil that the begonias were planted in actually is really chunky, so I'm gonna just use that in the terrarium. Try to reuse as much soil and things like that as I can. Just cover all of the roots. Now, as I said, I think I'm going to actually just prune this begonia and Fittonia because I'm here doing it anyway. Just gonna go grab my scissors. So I'm going to just snip right there. It's a nice little cutting. And I am going to remove this bottom leaf and I'm gonna plant it right in the soil. You can definitely root your begonias, but in a terrarium, they're gonna root up really quick anyway. So I choose to just plant them. And then the Fittonia, gonna just snip right there. And I'm gonna plant that right back into the soil as well. Okay, and now I have this extra leaf. I'm just gonna cut off the stem or the petiole, sorry. And you can actually just cut off the bottom of the leaf. And I'm going to plant that with the petiole side down into the soil. It doesn't always take, but it takes most of the time in my experience, especially when it's in a terrarium setting. And then it will hopefully root up and we'll have another Begonia maculata growing in there. I'm also going to snip off the excess of this leaf that was used for propagation. It just doesn't look amazing. It served its purpose for propagation, but I can take it out of my terrarium because the plant is established. Untangle those. So my hope is that this guy will sort of grow up in the back and then these will fill in the sides. Begonia maculata will be on this side and then in the front will be this cute little Soli mutata, which is adorable. Okay, and I'm gonna put this little rock back in. We can have a few rocks, just not too many because there's not enough space. Next up, I want to clean the terrarium itself. So I'm gonna go rinse the outside under the tap and then I'm going to mist the inside. So I'll be right back. I washed the outside with a washcloth and now I'm just going in along the sides to rinse off any soil or dust that is on the sides of the terrarium. And this is just water with like a drop of the leaf tonic. And give these guys a little bit of moisture. That will help them get established. And also rinse off any dust or soil that may have gotten on the leaves when I was planting them. It's good to give them a nice clean start. And I'll put the lid back on, fit all those beautiful leaves inside. And I really love this tank because you can adjust how open it is. Because I just watered everything, I'm actually gonna leave it quite open so that it doesn't get too moist and there's no risk of rot or anything. So I leave it open just so it can air out. And then maybe after a couple days, I will almost close it. Not completely close it, but almost close it. So that is the finished look. I feel like terrariums need a solid 3 weeks to really grow into the shape and how it's going to look, but that is where we're at so far. And I already look forward to seeing them fill in this space. I just plopped all those extra Begonia Zumba cuttings into a water vessel. Hopefully they can root up and then I'll have another plant. Lastly, I'm going to pot up this remaining clump of begonias. And I'm actually just gonna put it back into one of the pots that they came in. The soil is great and it saves me some time. I try to always put my plants that are under domes, I try to always put them on a plate or some type of surface because all the humidity from the dome comes down around the plant. So if you just have it on a table or a shelf, you are going to have a big mess. This is just a lid for a bucket, for an ice cream bucket, but that works great. And just fit that over there. That leaf is getting kind of stuck. There we go. All right, friends, that is all for today's video. I'm just going to maybe bask in the sun with my begonias for a little while. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.